Hey guys, Ali Hussainy here from Local Knowledge and BD Outdoors. Thanks for joining us for this seminar. This is kind of a cool topic that's really close to me personally, and it's good. We're going to teach you tonight how to take better care of your fish, get a better product, and ultimately make the most of your catches offshore and even inshore. And what we're going to talk about today is Ike Jime. And if you don't know what Ike Jime is, it's a process of basically properly handling your catch for the best flavor, the best shelf life. There's so many benefits to it, it's crazy. So the process is pretty simple, and we're going to break it down. We've got a sushi chef with us, Chef Roberto, and then we've got my good friend Robby Gant here from AFTCO. So Ike Jime has been around for a long, long time in Japan. It's how they prepare the really high-end sushi fish and a lot of other fishes for consumption. AFTCO kind of took notice of what they're doing. AFTCO is all about sustainability, making the most of your catch, conservation, and this falls right down their pipeline. So what we're going to do today is we're going to introduce you to the Ike Jime process. We're going to talk about how to properly treat and not just Ike Jime your fish, but how to treat and care for your catch all the way from the minute you get that fish on the boat until it hits your plate. And then we've got Chef Jeff here, and he's going to teach us the benefits of Ike Jime and how that relates to making, the best possible sushi product. But one of the things we want to hit on is we don't want you to think about this just for sushi. This is going to make any fish that you catch better. It could be a rockfish, it could be a white sea bass, it could be a halibut, some of your Florida species like the snappers and the groupers. Every single fish that you consume will benefit from the Ike Jime process. So we're going to dive into this in just a minute, but before we get into it, and I introduce my, my co-hosts here, we're going to go to a commercial break. All right, guys, we're back. And with me, I've got Robby from AFTCO and Chef Jeff from Sushi on a Roll. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
I think we'll make a good team for this one. We all really like to eat fish. We like to take really good care of our fish. Robby, not so much.
Not so much.
Not so much.
Like to catch them.
Just likes to catch them. But this, for me, is a topic that we've been doing this for a while. We dabbled in it. We messed with it a little bit, got away from it. You get busy on the boat or whatever. But since AFTCO's introduced the Ike Jime kit, we've gotten really serious about it. And I've got my my deckhand, we call him Diamond Dave, Death Dealer Dave, whatever. He's geeked out on this Ike Jime process. So every fish that comes aboard our boats, it's getting the wire, it's getting the proper treatment, it's getting, iced down. I think, Robby, you're the nuts and bolts guy here. Why don't you kind of walk us through the steps as you like to do it?
Yeah, I mean, pretty easy. It's a 4-step basic process. We'll get into the detail, but really it's when the fish comes over the boat, you got to kill him. You got to put him down. So a brain spike to the head, right? So that shuts off the brain. That's step number 1. Step 2 is exsanguination. Cool term for bleeding a fish, right? So bleed him up. Step 3 is the circuit breaker, the wire. So run the wire up, and step 4 is cool down. So ice him down. So it's a 4-step process for the Ike Jime, and then each step does a different thing to the fish itself, making it better throughout. So in years past, when you would catch a fish and you wouldn't do anything, it was grade D, right? So if you use one of those pieces, it goes from D to C to B to
A. Let's talk about us growing up, right? Catch a yellowtail.
In a gunny sack?
In a gunny sack. That was pretty much function Z.
Yes.
Like, right?
No care at all.
Yeah, no care taken to the fish at all. And that brings up one of my favorite stories is like people like bonita. That's a trash fish.
Yes.
Oh my God.
People are missing out.
You bleed a bonita. I've never even Ike Jime one. Thank you, chef. Like, you bleed a bonita immediately, you pack that thing on ice, take it out and eat it next to a piece of yellowfin, and I know which one I'm reaching for every single time.
Right.
every single time. And that goes true. You're Hawaiian, right?
No, but I've been Hawaii many times.
How do you feel about the skipjack?
Skipjack's good too. It's just more bold flavor.
It is,
right?
and if you treat it right,
yeah,
man.
Color and texture and everything.
Yeah, so I mean, those things for me totally changed the way I looked at fish. I think this is another evolution on that same thing, right? I have not Ike Jime Bonito yet, but you believe I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do a skipjack. Like, taking those fish and making the most of them, I think you're gonna find some hits in there that before you were like, I'm not so hot on eating that fish, right?
Yeah, we did it earlier or actually it was last year. We did bonita, we did boccaccio, right? Rockfish, boccaccio, and that just gets such a bad rap out west here for sure, but they're so plentiful. And we did the whole process, start to finish.
Yep.
And we brought the fish up to a restaurant in LA and had like Jeff here, we had the master kind of tell us what we did. And he was like, man, this stuff's incredible. And we ate it sashimi, and then he pan-seared it, and I ate it. And normally when you cook fish for me, I'm out.
Right.
And I ate it, right, because it brings out the oils and stuff from the fish. And I actually got it in my mouth and I got it down, and it was pretty decent. But we did that with boccaccio, we had bonita, we had sheep's head, we had vermilions, we had yellowtail. I mean, we had a bunch of different fish, and it was all like way better than anything I've ever had.
Yeah. Well, we were talking actually before we started this. Last week we went out and we caught a 50-pounder. Fat 50-pounder, so he's got some extra grease in him. He's going to be good to eat. But it was just a bluefin, regular run-of-the-mill bluefin. We Ike Jime'd him, and Jeff took the fish home, and he goes, and I took one piece, and he came in. He's like, "Did you eat that fish from last week?" I go, "Dude, I mean, it was you heard us talking about it. It was unreal.
Yeah. Just color and everything, I'm sure.
Color, flavor, everything. I feel like the process removes a lot of the funk from like a bigger fish, like a bluefin. Bluefin, love it. It's got some funk to it, for sure. And it pulls, whatever reason, it stops that process from happening. And I think shelf life is another thing. We talked about that earlier before we started here. Was like, I think of tuna now, especially in the last few years, more like beef than fish.
Yeah.
Right? I tell people, like, how long can I eat this for sushi? I'm like, take care of it, wrap it in paper towels, put it in your fridge, a week.
Right.
Before, now with the Ike Jime, 2 weeks. You want to dry age it? You can do all kinds of cool stuff with
we're
fish.
doing like 3 to 4 weeks in the fridge.
Crazy.
Airtight, air's the killer.
Yep.
Right. But if you, again, do it properly, keep the air away, it's like dry, aged beef. It's still meat, right? You can still do the same thing. It's just before we didn't know how to do it.
Agreed.
Right. And then, once you've killed a fish, it automatically starts, it wants to decay, it wants to die, right? It wants to go through the death process, right?
Exactly.
And when you eliminate all that stuff, now you can do really cool things with it.
I agree. I totally agree.
Making it have a longer shelf life, having
Even if you
better
vacuum pack
textures.
it too, it'll be a longer shelf life, right? You pull all that funk out of it and then put it in your freezer don't do it a year, do it like months, and it'll be just like you put in there yesterday.
Yeah, it's gonna help the fish every way possible. It's gonna give you a better product, a longer lasting product, a better tasting product, a more durable. I mean, what's the downside to it, right? And I think once you get it down, like for us on my boat, it's the same as gaffing them, right? That fish gets gaffed, it comes over the rail. And here's one I want to touch on. I see these guys all the time doing these gaff shots and trying to throw a fish in the boat like a hero.
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing, dude? That is a valuable product.
Right.
Yeah.
Treat it accordingly. Do not throw that fish on the deck. Do not let that fish go ape shit, beating itself to death, going crazy. Get it in the boat, treat it with respect, subdue it as fast as possible. Some of these bigger tunas, it's not the easiest thing to do to hold down a 250.
Yeah.
But you've got this guy right here, and we call this the attitude adjuster. You get this in the right spot, and that fish is done. It's lights out. So more things to think of. I mean, these aren't the same old days of catching 30 albacore, leaving them on your deck, and cutting them up later and turning them into cat food. Like, these bluefin are here in our waters, and we're going to speak a lot about bluefin, but again, it works for every species. Treat them with the respect they deserve. There are people that would kill for some of this fish that we're catching locally.
Right. Absolutely.
And let's treat it right and make sure we're making the most out of our catch.
But you're talking about the big fish, the big bluefins, right? You put that on ice, on a big cube ice, a 200-pounder, it's gonna bruise it.
Yep.
Right. So even that too, you got to watch out what you're doing after the fact. You do the A through D deal, right?
Steps, yeah.
Right. So
you want to get into the nuts and bolts of it now, Robby?
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
I'll just start at the very beginning, and you just hit on it. And number one, it's how to bring a fish over the side, right?
Yep.
So if it's big, you got to put a gaff in it. But realistically, if you want the highest quality possible, you net it, or you reach down and you grab the fish out of the water. Because as soon as you put that hook into the side, it's just like you, right? If I put a hook in you, it's going to hurt.
Not that stoked on that.
And you know, your body's going to go through certain things, right?
Yep.
So once you get them in the boat, you know, just treat them with respect. And we actually, when we want to do like really high-end fish and really take care of it, we take padding. And you know, I've got a roll under here. It's too big to bring out, but just a pad to lay the fish on. And why we do that is, again, bruising.
Yes,
it protects the
very
fish,
much
right? So every boat is a hard deck.
Yep.
And the fish comes over the side and he's pounding himself. Well, he's just pounding himself into bruises.
Yep.
So bruises is basically
Soften.
it's blood.
Yeah.
Right. So it's blood that ruptures, comes up to the surface. It makes that blue or purple mark, like on our skin. Right. With the fish is the same thing, but with blood is bacteria. So now you've got a bacterial load in that spot where it just bruised. Right. So you don't want to eat bacteria.
Right. Exactly.
So treat them kindly. So that's, you know, that's once you get them over the boat. The spike itself is key. When a fish comes over the rail, he is suffocating. So suffocation brings on lactic acid, cortisols, and adrenaline. So it's those acids that are flooding the muscle mass, what we're going to eat, right? What we're going to eat, like that's the part. So by simply placing this in its brain, now he's brain dead. He can no longer suffer from suffocation. So that's kind of step one is you know, turn off the lights.
And let's back up one step before that. I hear about these guys fighting a 60-pound bluefin for 2 hours. Right gear. Don't throw 20-pound test at 100-pound fish. If that fish is on the line, you want to minimize that fight time, right?
Yes.
And like, I remember a party boat captain telling me, if they'll eat the rope, I'm feeding them the rope.
Absolutely.
And when I was younger, didn't make sense to me. I wanted to fight that fish, maximize, like, nowadays, man, if we can get them to eat the kite, which is, you know, we want that flying fish, straight up rope. We're catching 250s in 20 minutes or less. You want to really try to get that fish to the boat as fast as you possibly can. You don't want to be outgunned because you've already put yourself behind in the process, like you're saying at that point.
Yeah, because now the fish is full of adrenaline.
Right.
Correct.
Right, and adrenaline causes burn.
Right.
And then the heat, right? And then that's what just kills the flavor, right? It just makes it not so good anymore. So that's basically the spike, and it's really easy. Tunas are simple, right? You find the flat spot on their head, that's where the brain's located. Shove this in, and then when you shove it in, if the fish doesn't go crazy, gills have to flare out, mouth normally opens, fins kind of just go stiff. If you don't get that, you've missed. And from the good guys at South Park, if you've seen that episode, hit them again, right? So just keep going until you get that.
And the other thing you can do too is, like, if we get in there and we miss a little bit, we kind of stir the pot with it a little bit, and then you'll see that fish go, and then that's it.
Then you're done.
Game over.
Then you're done. So that's step one, and that really, you've just done so much more for the fish
immediately,
just with this first step. And then, like I said, with the bruising is bleeding a fish, right? So exsanguination. So everybody has their own way of bleeding fish. I simply go from the top of the gill. You just open up the gill, and there's that membrane on the inside. So I basically just take my fillet knife. I go from the top all the way down to the throat latch. I turn them over. I do the same thing, and then I'll make a tail cut. And the tail cut is on the bottom of the backbone. There's the main artery, right? So if you sever that main artery, now you've got some circulation going on. And the bleeding process is the longest process of the entire deal, right? So even when I start breaking out the wires, that's like people freak out because it's just strange.
And most guys are doing step 1 and 2 anyway.
Yeah, it takes seconds to do that. But what I tell people is don't skimp out on the bleeding process. The bigger tunas, it's different than like your school size stuff or yellowtail or anything else. But I like to just take a 5-gallon bucket, fill it up with seawater. When you make those cuts, you put them in head first, the gravity is just going to pull through. And then you can actually take the fish, you can bend them, you can massage them, and that's just going to help get the blood out. When the water gets bloody,
change it,
pour it out,
rinse and repeat.
Do it again, and basically just do that until there's no more blood.
I think it gives you a better color for that way too.
It
takes all that funk out.
For sure. And you'll see, like on the Wicked Tuna guys, those fish are so big, they're bleeding them, they're just dragging them behind the boat. Same thing, pumping all that blood out, you kind of get them upside down, it comes out quicker. that step in itself is huge. I mean, and I think most guys are spiking, bigger
Yes,
tunas
they're
for
starting
sure.
to.
Yeah, and I think most guys are bleeding their tuna. They're hip to that. This is just one more quick and easy step where you're getting, I mean, in cases it's not even like twice as good a product. It's like 5 times as good a lot of times, right?
So that step 2 is bleeding the fish, and then step 3. So this is the mad science behind Ike Jime. So at AFTCO we've got 4 different wire sizes, and we have 4 different wire sizes because the canals on the fish are different. So we've got like the little orange guy here. This is like our freshwater size wire.
Even freshwater fish, huh?
Yep, for any fish at all. Blue is going to be great for all of your bottom fish, your cod, bass, etc.
Yep.
And then the silver and gold are the same diameter. The gold is 50 inches.
Okay.
So you need the 50 inch.
Yeah, hopefully.
You catch big ones.
We try.
I only need the 30 inch one because I catch smaller ones.
You'll get better, buddy.
I'm trying.
Stick with
I'm
it.
trying. But so to get to the neural canal, and we talked about this earlier, which is, do you go through the head or you go through the tail?
Yep.
So everybody who's kind of investigated it has seen it done both ways. So I prefer the tail cut simply because you can visibly
Better
see
visibility.
it.
Right.
So I take my fillet knife and I go up to the tail and I'll make an incision. And I basically just slice down until I feel
halfway.
the backbone. And when
Right.
you
And
feel
you're
it-
cutting them from the side, right? Not from the top.
Yeah, from the side.
Yeah, that's what we're doing too.
Yeah,
From the
from the
side,
side.
you'll feel it dig in a little bit.
Yep. And then I take my hand and I just, with the blade, I just go pop. And I pop the top of the blade.
Okay,
And so that will sever the spinal cord, but it doesn't sever the tail off.
got it. And we're doing
Want
the
the
same
tail.
thing. We
Want
just
the
kind
tail.
of,
Tail's a handle.
yeah, we're kind of cracking it. Once we
Yeah.
get through there, we
See?
just take the tail and go.
Yep,
Right.
pop it.
And that, especially if you're learning this, it gives you the best visibility. You can see right where that wire is supposed to go. There's no question.
Yeah, there's no
It's-
missing it.
Yeah.
It's, so if this is, the spinal cord, the hole is right up top.
Yep.
And it's a visible hole that
Yep.
you can see, and you simply take the wire and go ahead and just slide it into the neural canal. So what this does, the circuit breaker wire, is now you're playing a little bit of offense to the fish that you're about to eat. Where everything else you've done is like a defense against the normal consequences of death.
Correct.
So by utilizing the wire, you're now paralyzing the fish. So the neural canal of a fish actually holds the spinal cord. So it's not the spine,
Right.
It's the spinal cord is what we're getting rid of.
Correct.
So by simply taking that wire and shoving it through, you've now paralyzed the fish. So you need that handle, because the second the tip of this wire touches that nerve, the fish has now been dead for 10, 15 minutes. Dead. It's been brain spiked, it's been bled out, and you touch that with the fish comes
Here it
alive.
goes. Yeah, it goes crazy.
And if you don't have a hold on it, there's no way you're going to get the wire in there. So by having that handle, you can basically do it. And what this does is it tricks the meat or the fillet into not knowing it's dead.
Right.
This is what gives you, like what you're talking about earlier, the weeks of having good fish.
And you can watch as that wire goes up.
The fish will
the
vibrate
fish just
all the way to the top.
all the way up.
And then I don't think it gets to that rigor mortis state either. At
Right.
That point.
It prevents
If you do
that
it
from
right.
happening.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For sure.
If you do it before, right? So that's
For
why
sure.
it lasts longer.
Yep, totally.
Yeah. So that's that's step 3 is the circuit breaker wire, and then step 4 is another consequence of death is body temperature rises. So we want to bring the core body temperature down.
Yep.
So get yourself a nice harvest bag. Your boat's got fish holds, whatever it is, like a 50-50 ice to water slurry.
Yep.
And then go ahead and get them in there,
Yeah.
and then get them completely submerged. Right, the days of taking your fish and throwing it onto a bed of ice.
Yeah.
Right, that's another thing we used to do a long time ago.
Yes.
So you got one side that's kind of cold and the other side that's still frying. Get them completely in there.
100%.
And then keep them straight. And the cool part about keeping them straight is when they come out, they're way easier to process.
Yeah.
Right, because if you just throw them in there and they're curled up, when they go into
it's
rigor
all
mortis,
messed up,
sometimes
yeah.
they're come out like everybody's seen the C-shaped calico bass on a party boat.
Yeah.
Right, you got to take the fish, squish them down. What does that do to the meat?
Oh, I know. Destroys it all.
Destroys it all.
Yeah, bruises
Yeah.
everything.
Right, so if he comes out nice and straight, then you go ahead and cut them up. And
And we're going one step further before it hits the ice. We're gilling and gutting.
Yeah,
Open up the gill plate, trace the outside of the gill, disconnect at the top, disconnect it at the bottom. And if you do it right, you do that, and then you go to the anus of the fish, you cut a circle around it, and then that basically breaks the entire digestive system, front to back loose, pull it out one side of the gill, and then when you put them down in that slurry, all that good icy water gets up in the body cavity. You haven't exposed any of the flesh to water. That's another really important point. You don't want to put 17 gaffs in a fish if you don't have to. You don't want to tear the meat up. You're just giving bacteria a way to get into the meat. So try and get that thing with a gaff shot to the head, just underneath the chin is a really clean way to get them. And a lot of times you won't even need to bleed that fish if you hit them in the gills with the gaff. I mean, it'll pull a lot of the blood out of them. But that's another step that we do. Anybody who's selling fish commercially, market fish, they're always going to do that because it cools the meat down faster. This is just a bonus step that makes a huge difference in about under a minute a fish.
Yeah, I mean, the whole process from start to finish, I would say on average is about 15 minutes. And steps 1, 2, and 4 take seconds.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry, steps 1, 3, and 4. But step 2, bleeding. Yeah. Right? Don't skimp out on the bleeding.
No, let them
bleed
go
your fish, get it all out.
Just let it all out. Yeah, keep fishing, let it all out.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the other thing too with the bucket trick. If you don't have a bucket, if you have a hose or something, fish blood coagulates really quickly. So by having them in a bucket or a hose or something like that, it just helps get that blood out. So when the bucket, if you shake them, it breaks off those blood clots and it still allows that blood.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, the commercial albacore guys, they would have trash cans in either corner of the boat. And as soon as they get them in, they'd bleed them. They'd put them nose down in there, let them do their thing for a while, cool down, usually a bucket of ICC water. Then they'd pull them out and put them in the hold, and that's the exact same concept.
Yeah.
Well, that slurry helps too because they don't sit up against each other and bruise each other too,
100%.
Right? So have that slurry, let them kind of float a little bit, and then they kind of let them bleed out.
Yeah, I get questions all the time too on, the guy that doesn't want to buy chunk ice. He gets himself the block, or he's even
longer.
Cheaper, and he gets a 2-liter bottle of Coke and fills it up with water, puts it in the freezer. So now you've got a 10-pound block of ice that is now just smashing up against your fish as the boat's rocking, just beating it to death. So, like true commercial guys, like probably where you're getting your fish from is shave ice.
Yeah, shave ice is the best.
It is the best.
Now there's nothing.
This stuff's awesome.
It's the way to go.
Not practical for a party boater, but bust those bags open. And what we do is a combination. Like ice definitely holds better in a bag, right? So we'll take about half of our ice. Like on a daily trip for us, I'm taking 16, 18 bags of ice at 20 pounds each. I'm taking 300 pounds. That'll get me 3 medium large fish cooled down really, really well. Resist the temptation. If it's biting that good, man, try to release them or just drive away. Don't be throwing fish on the deck that you can't ice. Never take more fish than you can keep cold. You're just not doing the fish any justice, and you're not doing yourself any justice.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, because a lot of the guys that I've been talking to over the last year are, they're hardcore fishermen, but they don't catch a lot.
Yeah.
So when they're in a hot bite, they don't want to stop.
I know.
And do this. So what I tell them is, I'm like, okay, so you caught a fish, take your spike them. Take your knife, bleed them. Those take seconds. Throw them upside down in the bucket. Go back to fishing. Because now you've got time while he's bleeding, and even if he's bled out completely, you've got about a 30-minute window before you have to do the wire to where it still makes a big difference.
Okay.
Once
30 minutes.
30 minutes. Once you get past the 30-minute window, it's not going to be as good. I mean, he'll still make movements. You'll still be surprised how alive the fish is when you're putting the wire in him. After 30 minutes. But utilize that time to go ahead and rebait, refit. Try to catch another one. But that's your window of opportunity if you wanted to double up or triple up.
And what we found is you're always going to have a buddy who's geeked out on it, regular guy of your crew. Like I said, my deckhand is all about it. He wants to make the best possible product. Get somebody assigned to that job. Just like it was any other job on a boat. You're going to pull in the dock lines. You're going to be the chum guy. You're going to reel in the trollers. Dude, this is your job. Let everybody else go back to fishing. It's a team sport, right? Try to hook another one. And that's how we do it on our boat. We get that fish. I help get it in the boat, whatever. I'm done. I'm back. I'm trying to hook another one on the kite or whatever. And then my boy Dave's back there doing his thing, making the most out of our catch.
Yeah, well, we can do that, with private boating. Or on a 6-pack boat,
100%.
Right? That's easy, because then you can actually tell people what to do. Like we all have a job, and this is how the day is going to go. But on a long range fleet, it's kind of weird, right? You got knives, you got wires, you got all this stuff, and I've basically just been talking to a lot of my buddies that run boats, and I'm like, hey, would you be upset if these guys started bringing this stuff on the boat? They want to have this fish processed this way, because you guys already spike it. You already bleed it, and all the boats now have RSW. Right, you're missing out on one key thing. So I was like, how hard would it be for your deckhands just to have a fillet knife, because you don't want the passengers running around with a knife.
Yeah.
But they can do the tail cut, would take them 1 second.
Yep.
And then just tell the guy who caught the fish.
Yeah, put the wire.
It's up to you. You do the wire.
That's a great plan.
Right? And every person that I've talked to about this said, oh yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So it's just up to the guy to, start conversation with the deckhand, start conversation with the captain of these boats.
Yeah, I'm really serious about my fish.
Right. I only want to kill one.
Yeah. When you do 20 or 30 fish, I mean, it's going to be seconds versus minutes, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
especially once you get it down,
Yeah.
like it's just another step. That's like it's no big deal. We're doing it.
Yeah. And you see
all day long.
how much longer it lasts when you get that quality that comes out like that.
Well, I think the first time you taste it, you're like, oh, that was totally worth the work. It really doesn't take much to sell it to somebody to slow down, take a few extra seconds, and really make the most of that fish you possibly can.
yeah, to your point, you taste it, game over.
Oh, dude, that 50-pounder the other night tasted like a 200-pound fish. Just the texture, the small tuna is not ideally for sushi. We want the bigger fish, 150-pound plus fish. Had a chance to put some fat on it and do the deal, and that you wouldn't have known the difference. It was so good, and the meat was so light. Like Jeff even said, he grilled it, which I don't usually grill much bluefin.
Yeah,
I don't think it's that great. He said it was awesome. So it's just another way, and especially now we're catching all this bluefin. Like, how much of it can you eat raw?
Right.
Go the extra mile here, and now you got a good, good
Yeah,
product you can throw on the grill. A little salt, pepper, garlic.
Yeah, you're not making fish like in years past. You'd go out fishing, let's say on a Saturday, and you're having a party like Saturday night or Sunday,
Right.
because it's fresh.
Yeah.
Well, now you've got fresh fish to where you're doing
Days.
Yep. The next week you're planning a party. The week after that you're planning a party, so you don't have to eat it immediately. Because prior, the fish got gross.
Right. Or you don't have to cook it right away.
Really fast. It just it went to mush. Well, now you're going to have, an incredible fish for basically weeks on end.
Shelf life.
Okay, so let's talk about this in terms of we've done our work, right? We understand this. Fish has been wired. We've got these beautiful fish in the fish hold. We're stoked. We're taking them home. We're having our beers on the way in, high-fiving, all that good stuff. After the catch, what are we doing? What kind of timelines with the fillet? Like, what are you doing after you get that fish back to the dock?
Well, if you have the time, keeping them in ice longer is better.
I tell people I don't even want to cut a fish if I have my choice for 2 days.
Exactly.
Let them stay on ice. The difference, I first saw this difference, David Traylor, guy used to be on Offshore Adventures, great chef, great waterman. He showed us the difference of keeping a yellowtail on the bone for 2 days versus cutting that thing up as soon as you got home. I mean, it's like this. It's night and day.
Yeah.
How much better, and especially a product like a yellowtail that can get fishy. I'm not a huge yellowtail fan. You treat a yellowtail right, I love it. Comes out of a party boat gunny sack, do not love it.
It's chum.
Right.
Yeah, totally. So I always tell people, like, how long can you keep a fish for sashimi in the fridge? Treat it right, a week. And when I say treat it right, I have that fish on paper towels.
Yeah.
The minute they get soaked, I unwrap it. If you can get those heavy blue paper towels like the commercial guys use, or like you see in the sushi bar, the white ball towels, anything like that's even better. It doesn't stick to the meat as much. But I'm changing that stuff out constantly. Or your friends at AFTCO have come along with a solution for that.
Right.
And these are exactly the same pads that you're getting like at the bottom of a tray with a steak, right?
Right.
Pull the moisture away, get it away. Moisture makes bacteria. Just think about that, and it's not going to get you in a minute. It's not going to get you in an hour. But if you want the fish to last as long as possible, a quality heavy paper towel. If you go to a sushi bar, you're sitting at the bar, right? And they've all got that same Hoshizaki cabinet with the little penguin on it and all that. All those fish that they're using right now, they're sitting on paper towels or an Absorball like this or something similar. And then the fish that they have cut blocked out, what do you guys do?
Right. I mean, paper towel. I mean, we got to be sponsored by Bounty or somebody because you go through so much of it. It's just, and that's what it is. So if you don't put it on paper towel, you can put it side by side and you can see that moisture come off that fish. Like when you go to these poke houses, you see some of that gray juice in there.
Oof.
And that's that moisture pulling from the fish. So if you put a paper towel even just on the bottom, it just drains that and you'll see how much the texture and the flavor and there was no smell at all, and that's what you want.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I do at home too. Is like I have a drying rack that I use like to put a steak on, and kind of age it in the refrigerator overnight. I do the same thing with my fish. I give it 1 day exposure to the refrigerator because it pulls the moisture out with the paper towel on it, and then after that I put it in either like on a paper plate and I put it inside of a Ziploc bag. And that gets the air off of it. But actually the air of the fridge for 1 day is pretty helpful in pulling the moisture out of the fish. Just like if you left a piece of bread in there, it's going to turn into toast. It's going to dry it out. So let's pick this up after a minute. We got another commercial break here. We're going to stand by and we'll be back with you guys in just a minute. Okay, guys, we're back. So we sort of left off talking about how long you can use the fish. You know, kind of, I have a little bit different system than you do, but at the end of the day, I think that the system is get that moisture out of the fish, right?
Absolutely.
Moisture equals bacteria, like I said, not overnight or whatever, but you're fighting against the clock. If you do these things right, you'll go from being able to eat a fish a week later, you know, without freezing it, to how long are you guys going on some of that dry aged fish?
Weeks.
Freaky. That's
crazy.
still freaky to me.
Yeah.
But you know what, like, a lot of people tell you that, like Catalina offshore, spent a lot of time around there. I know Tommy really well. You talk to anybody about how do you know when a piece of fish is bad or anything, trust your nose.
Yeah.
It smells funky, it is funky. Don't question it, like, move on, right? And I think you're gonna know, especially being an educated dude who's been around some fish, right, when that fish has gone bad. So I think in all cases, trust your nose. You do these steps, you treat this fish right, keep the fresh water off it, keep the air off of it, get the moisture out. I mean, I've seen guys now, like the big rage, right? It's a dry aged steak is always why you go to a good steakhouse,
Right.
and you get a steak like you can't make it home.
Right.
They're doing the same thing with the tuna. Wrench and Rodent is up in Oceanside.
Dwayne,
They're doing a
Dwayne,
bunch of that
yeah,
stuff,
he's good.
right? Have you done any of the dry aged tuna yet?
I have not. We're a whole different. We do catering. We do a lot of catering, but even with the katsuo, that's how it started, right? So they dry age that and becomes like rock solid, and they take like a scraper, and that's
They
how you
shave
get
it,
yeah,
right?
they shave it, and that's how they kind of created all that. But yeah, I mean, it months like that to get hard as a rock, and it's edible.
Months.
Crazy.
Months, it's wild.
I don't know about that, but I'll give you a couple 3 weeks maybe, and I'll still try it.
Trust your nose.
Yeah, that's exactly it. When in doubt with anything, you open up a bag of chicken and it smells
Yeah.
funky, toss it.
Yep.
Right.
Like same thing with fish. This stuff, if you treat this fish right, fishy should be the last smell
Yeah.
that you encounter when you
More
open
so
it
in a
up.
sushi bar. If it smells, if you're buying fish at these stores and it smells, yeah, I mean, if it smells, you know, this close, obviously toss it, but if it has a hint of smell, you can maybe cook it and be okay.
Yeah.
But you don't want to eat it raw, right? If it has any hint of smell, that's what sashimi grade is. It's not very fresh, right?
Yep.
And some of them will be frozen because of just to keep the inventory, but it's a curing process also with some of the bacteria. But yeah, if you can pull that moisture away is the key to all of it. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. And all these processors, that's what they tell you is just get paper towels and just let it sit in there for even, you know, when you're defrosting it too, right? When it's frozen, put that in your refrigerator and just let it just kind of soak it all up. And you'll see how much moisture gets. It's pretty wild.
It is crazy how much moisture comes out of it. Growing up, we always wondered why the sushi that we made from our local tuna never looked like what you got from a sushi bar or whatever. And then Tommy Gomes from Catalina dispelled that for us. He goes, well, bro, that's flash frozen fish
Yeah.
that has carbon dioxide shot on it,
Yeah, the saku
which
block.
makes it ruby red. Saku block, the lowest form of sushi
I know,
fish.
exactly.
Dude, it's like eating cardboard. It
Exactly.
really is.
And people
But
don't even know that.
they don't
It's-
know it. Well, people are like, oh, I love the seared ahi salad at some chain restaurant. I'm like, oh God, don't eat
bright
that
red.
stuff.
It's like
It's 'cause
Corvette
it's-
red.
It is. It is. I've killed a million tuna. I've never seen one like that. But pull the moisture out, wire that fish. Guess what? You are going to get that ruby red color naturally. You're going to get a finer product. It's almost got more of a, I don't want to say rubbery, but it is more of a rubbery, springy texture versus being a gooey piece of fish
Exactly.
because you got all the water out.
Water
of
out.
it.
And you'll see that. It's just the firmness of it. Even when you get people that catch the fish in the boat and they say from the water they'll fillet and they'll eat it, right?
Ah,
But
yeah.
yeah, but it's like, you know, high 60 temperature, right?
Yep.
But if you refrigerate it or freeze it or a little bit, get to like 40, 41 degrees, 3, 4, 5 hours, and you'll see it shrink.
Yep.
And it just tightens up, right? That moisture kind of goes away, and then it's just money.
You see tourists all the time. Oh yeah, the guy filleted the fish and cut us up some on the back of the boat. I'm like,
I know.
you don't
So
want
good.
that. It's the worst. It gets gritty. It's all
Everything.
liquidy and just
Soft and
not good, man. Firm that fish up. And even when I'm making sashimi at home, I will either, if I thaw the fillet out completely, I'll put it back in the freezer on a plate, open for like 15 minutes and just let it ice up a little bit. Cleaner cuts.
Yeah.
The stuff just cuts like butter. I mean, imagine trying to cut a warm stick of butter versus a cold stick of butter. The knife,
Yeah.
just goes through it. It doesn't want to fall apart. And all these little tips, I think, add up to make the best quality product possible.
Even one of the guys was talking about the total of the bluefin. It's hard to get the lining off the rib cage, right?
Yep.
To get it off. And so same thing, someone brought up, just freeze it a little bit so it kind of stiffens up, and then the knife just goes right under that fat,
100%.
the lining, and then boom, you're ready to go.
Yep, 100%. It's the same thing with filleting tuna. I know you've caught a lot of tuna, and you know, if you get that thing iced down cold, man, that knife goes through it like nothing. And you can hack and slash. And back in the old albacore days when we were catching probably way more than we should have without enough ice, it was like cutting warm sticks of butter. Oh God. Yeah, that was not the best for sure.
Yeah,
so.
like one of the other tips too that we talk about is water.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. So sport boat guys fillet their fish, and then they take your fillet and they rinse it off in the bait tank. You're just loading it full of bacteria.
And discoloring it.
Yeah, so that's a no-no. But even when you have it at home and you take it out, don't rinse it in fresh water, right? Like you said, we got to be sponsored by Bounty.
Yeah, I know. I'm telling you, right?
Paper towels are your best friend. It just takes it again, just a next level up. So just one more little easy thing to do. And then even on the sport boat, guys, like where these little pads come into play or paper towels, just slide some of that into the Ziploc bag before you bring your fish home, because it's just going to absorb all that goo, and that goo is straight bacteria.
And that's another good point. Like when we cut fish on a private boat, right? I use half the cutting board for cutting the fish, and then I bring it over here and I skin it. You do not want the meat to come in contact with the skin. Remember getting the bag of tuna fillets with the skin on? You are rubbing the bacteria, nasty, dirty outside of that fish up against the part you're going to eat. Bad program. Get the skin off, get it away from it. Sure, there's some fish that you want to do skin on, put them in one bag at a time, because it does hold the meat together for some softer fish. But for the majority of the fish that you're going to cut, man, we're cutting fish over here, we're skinning fish over here, and we're taking it off the skin, and we're not letting it hit the cutting board at all. And if it does, we will have a bucket of clean salt water right there. Just give it a quick dunk and then bag it. But that's so critical, and all these little things add up to a home run, right? It's not any one of these things, but it's just a better process from start to finish, and with this being the icing on the cake.
Absolutely.
And I think once you do it enough, it's the same thing. It'll get easier and easier, and you don't have to think anymore. It's just
part of the program.
It's become totally automatic for us on our boats. Like we don't even think about it, and we're getting so much better fish. Everybody's stoked. Less of that fish is going to end up in the corner of somebody's freezer, turn into an ice block that gets thrown away. And that's the worst thing you can do to any of
that's the
these
goal,
fish.
I think, for us at AFTCO was, what could we do to make sure that we're not taking more than we can eat, right?
Exactly.
So,
any protein.
Anything. But I mean, just fish in general, right? It's hard enough to catch a fish. The state wants to shut fishing down. So it's a very valuable asset that we have, and we just got to protect it. And treat it with respect. I mean, that fish gave its life so you can eat, right? So treat it with some respect. Utilize these processes, because at the end of the day, I mean, you guys eat fish, I don't. But at the end of the day, it's way better.
Yeah, I mean, you're paying some of this fish for $50, $100 a pound, right, retail, and then you're gonna toss it in the trash can. It's like, let someone eat it, give it to somebody,
totally.
right?
So, we do, like I'm a hunter. Same thing, man. We're making the most. If I'm taking your life, man, I'm gonna eat every bit of that thing that's edible. And make the most out of every catch that you can, every kill you can. It's not about catching as many as you can, because God knows there's some days when you can kill a bunch of fish.
You're allowed to release them.
Yeah, that's true.
Just a fight, right?
Never catch more than your ice will hold. Never catch more than you can process. Never catch more than you can give away, enjoy fresh with your family, and tuck some away in the freezer, man. People, like we talked about earlier, I don't eat frozen tuna. You treat this tuna right and freeze it, dude, it is great. And you will be so stoked to have some good sashimi in January when you're in Southern California.
When they're not fishing it.
It becomes extra valuable at that point. During the season, there's lots of fish floating around and and all that. So I think you really owe it to the fish, and the process is simple. It doesn't take that much extra work.
Super easy.
Oh, and you'll see it when you eat it. It's amazing. Yeah, just the color when you open and sometimes when it's in a vacuum packed bag, it kind of discolors. But when you open it, it blooms, right? That red just comes back, and it's amazing what that air does to it. But if you pull all that moisture out, it's just, that funk is just, people don't understand that. They want to eat it like that saku block. They think it's because it's under $10 a pound that it's the best, right? But pay like $12, $15, $16 a pound retail.
And now you've got all these options, right? You've got the Catalina offshores. You've got
Tommy has that new
Tommy's got Tunaville down there.
Right.
You can go down to the Fisherman's Market down there at Seaport Village and all that. You got all these great ways. And to the credit of our state government, which we don't give much credit very often, and our city government, they have made it easier for a guy to sell right from the boat, right to your plate. You know, it's a simple license, and those guys can now deliver a fresh product without a middleman touching it. There's plenty of opportunities. I mean, if you're on social media, you can find a place to get a fresh tuna, a fresh big eye. Some of the stuff they're catching way out of sight off of our coast is coming back fresh, and it's amazing. I'm sure you're using that big eye.
Big
like,
eye is phenomenal. That color on that big eye is wild.
Big eye and Opa used to be like something that was a treat, and now, man, you can go pick that up on Saturday morning, cut it up for your friends, you know, later the same day or a few days later after you treat it, you know. So I think that we're lucky in a lot of ways. We have all this access to fish, not just the fish we're catching. Let's make the most of it, be able to share it with everybody, and you know, enjoy it to its full extent.
Absolutely.
All right, so on that note, let's take another commercial break real quick, and we'll be back with you guys in just a few minutes. Goes so fast. Are you good with? All right, guys, we're back here. BD headquarters here in San Diego. I got Robby with me. I got Chef Jeff. We've been talking about all things fish processing, Ike Jime, all that. Let's see what the audience wants to know. So we got some live Q&A going here. First question I see here is Patrick wants to know if you need to finish the bleeding process before running the wire, or if you can run it before they're done bleeding out.
I think you can run it as soon as you catch the fish. Just bleed them out.
I sort of feel the same way.
Yeah.
And it used to be, we would always bleed them, then spike them. And the thinking was, let the heart, you know, still work and pump that
There's
out.
still residual energy in the fish. Even though you've brain spiked them,
Okay.
it's still alive, right? So that, like when you put the cable in the neural canal, it comes back to life.
Yep.
There's still a lot of energy in that fish. That heart is still pumping.
It's still going.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you don't have to worry about it.
And we see that a lot of times when we will Ike Jime, we'll do everything. And the last step, we gill and gut them. And you
Right.
pull that heart out and you get that boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom. I mean, kind of gory,
going.
but still pretty cool. Yeah, everything's still working inside there. Okay, so next question. John wants to know if we have any tips for finding the hole to run the wire through on yellowtail from the tail end. He says it seemed to be easier on smaller rockfish. So I've done a few yellowtail. I didn't have any trouble, really. Did you? I mean, you got any tips for a guy doing yellowtail?
The only tip that I would have would be maybe go further up the body. Right,
so the bones get a
where
little
the
bigger.
bone is a little bit bigger.
That
It's going
makes
to be
sense.
a more defined canal
Correct.
versus closer to the tail.
Okay.
And remember, guys, you're not going to eat that last
tail.
little
Yeah,
section.
exactly.
So go up a couple inches, make your slice, make your cut. Therefore, you're dealing with more of the backbone of the fish. And
Okay.
then you'll be able to see that canal.
yeah.
I think that's a good
Probably
tip. We call the
fish.
back is like neighbor fish. Then as you move forward, it's mother-in-law fish, and then it's like fish for your friends, and then that front third, that always seems to make it in my refrigerator. Okay, next up, what is the difference between putting the fish head in saltwater bucket compared to just hanging it upside down?
So in the bucket of water, upside down, the water's going to keep the
Flush it, right?
it's going to keep it from coagulating.
Oh, okay.
So if the fish is just hanging upside down, the blood's coming out. Everybody's seen like at the back of a boat when you cut the fish and you get those big blood blotches.
Butters.
That's coagulated blood.
Yeah.
So if that covers the cut, it's not
It's not going to
allowing
be
it
able
to
to pass.
flow.
That makes total
Yeah.
sense.
So just holding them upside down, I don't think is really good. I think it's got to have water flow.
Yeah.
A hose,
Right.
dragging it behind the boat like they do on Wicked Tuna,
Yep.
or a bucket of water upside down, just
I
to
think
help
keep
it
it
flow.
cooler, right? Trying to keep it at
Yeah,
that
to
cool
keep it-
temp. It
yeah.
won't get hot out of the sun.
Yes.
And for us on those bigger fish, we're just using the washdown.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we're keeping that stuff moving. We
Yeah, just-
usually, we'll cut them behind the peck. We take the gills out, anywhere I can get the blood out, and at
Yes.
the tail. And then we just keep it washed down, keep it wet. And then you're still going to get some of that action too once he hits the slurry that you've got in your fish bag or your fish box.
Yep.
So, okay, let's see. Next question from Dennis. What about Ike Jime for a fish like calico, rockfish, white sea bass? Fish that generally taste good from the start. Is it worth the time and effort?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, like one of the first trips that I did that I went out with Andrew Choi from the Ike Jime Federation. He's like the master of this whole thing, and we caught boccaccio. Everybody on the West Coast has caught boccaccio, and they've got just a bad rap like the bonita, and we did this process to it, and it was nails.
Yeah.
And that's coming from me, a guy that doesn't eat fish.
Yep.
And it was good. Was it great for me? No, but it was good. For me to say it's good, that means it's great for you.
Okay, and I can imagine a white sea bass. It's probably, I mean, that's the best eating fish on our coast, if you ask me.
Yeah.
You next level it like this, and dude, I'm already thinking like swordfish.
Well, again, like the whole idea of Ike Jime is everything goes up a rung, right? So the bottom of the barrel, which would be like your boccaccios, your bonitas,
Yep.
right? It just jumped up to here.
Right.
And then your mid-range fish just jumped to here, right? And then your bluefin that everybody thinks is phenomenal, which it is, but if you do this process, now it's going to knock your
Next
socks
level.
off. It's just next level.
Yep. Yeah, totally. So the answer is yes, Dennis. We think it is worthwhile. Man, give it a shot. And we want to see you guys report back. Come back to this post. Let us know how it's going. You know, you can send Robby an email. You can send me an email. We're not hard to find. Let us know your experiences. You guys may stumble onto some stuff that we didn't even think about, but it will definitely elevate the quality of your catch. Next question. Tim is asking how the Japanese fishermen who started doing this process figured it all out. That's a really good question.
Good question. You'd have to ask your buddy up there.
Yeah, probably. Well, I think just because Japan, like the main source of food in Japan is fish.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think just the Japanese culture, in my experience, is nothing is ever good enough.
Right.
They're always pushing the envelope. Guys, fishing tackle, right? Like the best of the best comes out of Japan. For the, they're always pushing, always pushes. I think they do the same thing with
Pen
fish.
reels, go pen. USA.
Yeah, USA made. But,
But I think that's what it even is with the smaller fish. They're just, everything is spiked. Everything is just
I think just
wire,
in Japan, they just always want it. They're never satisfied.
As good as possible.
Right.
That makes total sense. And I think once you understand the anatomy of the fish, it totally makes sense, right? Like, if you could do it with a cow, you might get the best beef you've ever had.
Yes.
Getting that cow to hold still for
sign
that.
me up.
There you go. we found Robby's calling. Okay.
I need a bigger wire.
That's exactly right.
Let's see. SoCalazar asked if he heard right about leaving the fish in an ice slurry for 2 days before cutting it. Yes. Try it. Take that kill bag home. Put it in your garage, a nice, cool place. Dude, people crack up because I do not like eating local yellowtail that much. I've caught millions of them. I've eaten millions of them. It's just like, it's fallen off the list for me. You leave a yellowtail, especially like a squid grounds yellowtail that's been sitting there getting fat on that, high protein, greasy food. Leave it on ice for 2 days. Cut that thing, and without the Ike Jime, you are hard pressed to tell it apart from like hamachi from Japan. It is really good. Next level it up, it'll blow your mind, I'm sure.
Yep.
And we'll be doing a lot more of that in the coming years. Scott wants to know if there's a fish that you do want to leave the skin on before freezing him.
I'll leave it to the master.
I think most you can. I think one, you can tell what it is when you're defrosting it. And some of it, like salmon, you can eat that skin too, right? But just take all the moisture out of it first and then paper towel on the bottom and then freeze it. Right?
I think some of the softer fish is generally where I would leave some skin on. And then there are some recipes that are great. Like one of Rush's favorite recipes in Florida is mutton on the half shell. Take the scales off, leave the skin on, and then, or even leave the scales on, and then grill that fish skin side down. Dude, it's killer.
Even like hamachi kama is the same thing.
It's very similar, yeah. It's got the skin on it still.
Black cod, you crisp it up with a little torch, and it gets all crispy, and it's just like butter.
We're going back to your place for dinner.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any chicken?
Like a wagyu.
There you go.
Even better.
Yes.
Let's see. Chuck asks, what is the best way to make the wire cut on, say, a smaller 16 to 18 inch fish like a bass or a cod? So what did you guys do with some of those smaller fish?
We still did the tail cut.
Tail cut. Okay.
Tail cut. And again, like I started just mastering this with mackerel.
Oh, really?
So we're
just
taking
playing around.
Just to make sure I understood how everything worked and I can come in front of an audience and speak, have some sort of wisdom behind it. So I got a bunch of mackerel and I just started doing it. But even on like the little mackerels, I used the freshwater wire, but the neural canal was visible.
Right there. Wow.
And my eyesight's not the best. I didn't even have to have my glasses on. I could still see it.
Cool. Let's see. Since freshwater is bad for the meat and typically we just pack it in ice, wouldn't it be better to bring less ice and fill the hole with more salt water to create the slurry. No. More ice is always the answer. You don't want the fresh water coming in direct contact with the meat. If you do everything like we're talking about, you're going to really minimize that. You might have a gaff hole where some fresh water can get in, but when you go to cut a fish, we all know you ain't missing that gaff hole. It's a big, nasty, bloody spot. I cut, and you see guys trying to trim around that. Screw that. An inch on either side, get that nastiness out of there. That meat has been penetrated. You do not want to even eat near it if you know what's good for you. So no, I don't think that's the answer. I think more ice, more salt water, just get that slurry really, really going, and it will. It'll definitely change the quality of your fish. Let's see, next question. Maximo asks, what is the process for a flat fish like a halibut or sole? Is there any difference in the technique?
Same. All fish bodies are the same.
Yeah, pretty much if you stand them up, right?
Yep.
It's a fish is a fish kind of thing.
Fish, yep.
Yeah, I think if you can't get the spike in the forehead, you might as well just do the tail.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, you practice that way, and then you just get it done every time.
And I mean, even a good bleed shot probably is going to handle that, not quite as quick as a spike, but you're letting the wind out of that thing pretty quick.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, just like to find the brain of a fish. We didn't touch on this, but you know, like if you look at a fish, it's got the eyeball, and there's a jaw line, and then the gill. So that jaw line is called the preoperculum. And if you line up the preoperculum with the lateral line, so you go whoop,
Did not know that.
brain location.
Wow.
That's where the spike goes. So that's a nice little tip just to see. So the preoperculum. So most fish have it. You don't even know what it's called, but between the eyeball and the gill, there's that jaw line.
Yeah, the jaw basically looks like almost like a little gill.
Like a little gill.
Yep.
That's called the preoperculum. You line
Go
it up.
straight up from that.
You line up the top of that with the lateral line where they intersect is basically where you want to put the spike.
Got it. Okay. And with the tunas, like you said, it's super easy.
Yeah, just feel.
Take your thumb, push around, feel the soft spot, go in there, stir the pot up a little bit if you missed it. He'll let you know when you hit the right spot. It'll be over pretty quick. Okay, Patrick says, I'm in Maui, it's always warm here. Can I add ice to my slurry on the second day, or will this delete the slurry too much? I guess I can go get another bucket of salt water too. I add to it.
Yes.
If I'm not, we even go one step further. If we know we're not fishing the next couple of days, we just leave them in the hole. We don't even touch them. If we're going to cut them ourselves or take them to the processor, let them chill for a day or two. It doesn't cost you anything. Couple more bags of ice on top. I would not stress, getting them too fresh watered down or whatever. And you know what? Commercial fishermen, one of the things that you'll see they carry on every commercial fishing boat that goes in the hold is what? Box of rock salt.
Oh yeah.
They all use it. You want to get really serious about this, and I have some buddies that geek out on it. They will bring a box of rock salt, and they will salt that ice before we even put it in. Commercial boats, a lot of times, will use salt ice, where they're making their own ice out of salt water for the same reason. So, no, salt isn't going to hurt them one bit at all. Salt's a great preservative. I mean, shoot, the Indians were using that stuff to eat fish a year later. You can feel totally good about salt. You want to throw some more in the recipe, go for it. Isn't going to hurt a thing.
Yeah, and I think, too, just adding the ice to make sure that the temperature...
Cold is everything, right? Yeah,
Right.
totally.
As long as it's whole, right? There's no cuts in it or anything,
Right.
no fillets.
Yep.
Yeah, as long as it's a whole fish.
Cold as you can get it. Let's see. Next question. Roland wants to know, how do we approach the crew on the head boats to get this done on local San Diego bluefin tuna trips? I think Robby's kind of doing that for you, right? I mean, you're spreading the word.
Yeah, I'm trying to pave the way, but there's a lot of boats.
Yep.
Right? So simply, I've told my buddies that go on these trips, and you've already, you own the wire. They don't have the wires on the boats yet.
Yep.
I'm working on that. But
You're going to seed the boats with kits?
We're trying to.
Sweet.
So anybody out there that needs these, and you run a sport boat, let me know. I'll send you one. But just simply ask a crew member or ask the captain. Just say, hey, I want to do this to my catch. Can you? They're already brain spiking it. They're already bleeding it. They're already putting in the RSW.
Yeah.
So can you just please
Give me a minute.
at the deckhand make the tail cut, and then once they make the tail cut, then it's up to you, the angler,
To finish.
Yeah, and I think the best way to do it is just
ask 'em.
before you leave the dock, just get it off the table and ask. And I think as we start talking about more of this, as we start showing the benefits of it, I think that's something that the sport boats are going to move to as well. They're always, remember RSW ain't that new.
Right.
Like this is like, 15 years ago, you only went on certain boats because they had RSW, and it became same with sonar.
Yes.
Right? Oh, does that boat have sonar? I'm not getting on it. I remember when I was younger riding the party boats, you didn't. Well, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And then it became RSW. I think this is going to be the same way. These guys, they do care about the catch. Sure, it's a business and they got a lot of fish to deal with, but you're talking about a minute of fish, and I think you're going to see a lot more of these people doing it on their own.
I just think, to your point, it's going to become a staple in certain sport boats don't like change.
Yep.
Right? And
Fishermen.
that's true. I don't like change, but it's going to evolve, and everybody wants. I mean, like you always have the leaders in the industry, like the Tim Ekstroms, the Frank Leprestis, right? So they started the RSW thing. Like Tim's been wiring fish for years, right? This is nothing new to Tim Ekstrom on the Royal Star.
Yeah.
Same with Frank. It's just getting the rest of the boats to understand this, to make it part of their process. Just like last year on your boat, none of this existed. Now this year, it's part of your everyday deal, right?
Every day.
Every day.
I think we got our first sample kit from you like middle of the season last year. Messed with it a little bit. It's kind of a pain. Oh, figured it out. Oh, took that fish home and ate it.
It's better.
Totally worth it. Yeah, totally worth it. It didn't take long to figure that out. And I am still excited. Like, dude, some of my favorite fish I've never tried it. Wahoo.
Yeah.
I mean, wahoo's phenomenal. It doesn't need any help, right? Let's level it up and see what it tastes like. Sea bass, swordfish, man, I think the possibilities are endless. And now I'm just curious, and I want to try. I think I'm going to start traveling with the wire as well.
Yeah.
Throw it in your bag. It doesn't cost anything extra.
Nope.
And, see what you can do with some of those other species.
Yeah, better to have it than not.
Next question, let's see. Is a fat spike or thinner spike better, like an ice pick versus a Phillips head screwdriver? That's actually a good question.
We sell this, or we're going to sell this summer, only to kind of fill out the system. It's a Phillips head screwdriver that's pointy, right?
Yep.
Or anything.
That's what we used to use.
Anything. A screwdriver, an ice pick, an owl, what do they call it? Like the woodworking.
Oh,
deal,
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Doesn't matter. Just something, it's got to be roughly 4 inches. I mean, like this spike here, it doesn't look big versus the big giant mamma jamma some of these guys use. The brain's located very close to the top.
Yep.
This 4-inch spike puts down
even the biggest fish.
Like I said, like Andrew from the Ike Jime Federation, he's an East Coast guy, and he's catching the big giants.
Yep, real ones.
They're using this.
Okay.
Right? You don't need the 1 inch by 18-inch long
exterminator rebar. I will say, so a mutual friend of ours, my buddy Ken, gave me this spike from a company called GC Knives. It's a guy who makes high-end custom knives on the East Coast, and it's gnarly. It's the exterminator. You hold it like this, and it's got a tapered spike that comes out of it, very sharp, very strong. Well, what we found is with this spike, we can go right into the head, kill the fish, wiggle it front to back a little bit, and you've already opened up the canal all in one shot. Stick your finger in there. You can, with your finger, if you can't even see it, you can feel that little canal. Done.
Yeah, so that's a great way to go. Yeah, for that.
It is, and it would be equivalent to probably using like a big flathead screwdriver.
Yep.
You probably get the same result. We're liking it because it just saves us a step. We don't even have to do the tail cut. And then another trick that we've learned on our boat is that slack jaw thing I was talking about. You will see as soon as you hit the button, the jaw on that fish, it's usually slapping or it's pulled shut. It'll just go as limp as can be. You've done your job.
Yep.
You've shut them down. Another question here. I've seen people use 100-pound mono instead of the wire. Is that a good, quick alternative? Back in the day, that's what they used to use. I think it was more like 200-pound though, right?
It's heavier.
You're going to need heavier than 100.
Yeah, it's 200. Yes, you can use a single strand. The problem with you have because of the flexibility of a mono is the backbone's a series of vertebrae, and of those vertebrae is a series of canals. So you're going from one canal to find the next canal
100%.
to find the next. So our wires are specifically built to find the next
jump
one,
the gap.
to jump the gap.
And that's where, could see with use, especially a small single strand, it's just too fine.
Yeah, it'll bind up. You're not going to go through. And then this is also, not only is it going to find, but it's really going to destroy the spinal cord.
Fast.
Right, fast.
And what are these retail for, Robbie? Just
the smaller ones are $29, and then the bigger ones were between like $59 and $79.
nice set of pliers.
Yes.
Keep it on the boat. I mean, it's the price of a good fillet knife. I mean,
And they were built, again, it's commercial grade, which means guys like yourself, right? Guys that fish a lot, it's built for them, right? So guys like me that only go 5, 6, 7, 8 times a year, it's going to last me forever. It's still going to last you forever.
Totally.
But
and all we're doing, we're giving that a freshwater rinse, throwing it in there with the rest of the tools, shutting the door, and it's just fine when we come back to it. Good quality stainless steel. Let's see. Benny Ortiz, our buddy in Florida. What's up, Benny? Going one step further, can you discuss pressure bleeding fish after the Ike Jime process is done? So Benny's a geek for this. I don't know about the pressure bleeding. Do you? Maybe you can talk about it.
I know a little bit about it.
Okay.
So Benny, you can call me tomorrow, correct me if I'm wrong or right, but I did watch a whole bunch of videos on this. And the pressure bleeding is that, when you make that tail cut and, you've got the neural canal here and then you have the main artery below, you're basically doing the same thing with some, like I've seen it done with like a water gun.
Oh, a washdown hose or something?
Where they put it in there.
That makes sense.
It basically just pushes stream of water through the entire fish and it just cleans out everything.
That totally makes sense.
It's they do a lot of like salmon, like a lot of salmon guys will do that where they've got, it's all like lined up and they take the salmon and they kind of just plug them in and they let them in. Just another cool way of bleeding them out to the extreme.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
It's just going to flush them through with salt water. So like all the veins, all the main everything's gone.
Pump them out. Yeah, well, once you disconnect that plumbing at both ends, right? It's only got one place to go.
Yep.
Out the other side and carrying some of that bacteria and fishiness and blood is never a good thing in your fish. That's another thing that you really want to take care to get off all the fillets. I see guys quick fillet, cut fish back in the day and then just throw them in a vacuum with the bloodline. You're like, oh, dude, you're not going to like that later on at all. Either that or your cat's really going to like that. Yeah. Dark meat on chicken isn't bad. Dark meat on your fish is not good. Not good. All right, guys. Well, I think we've kind of run the gamut here. I hope everybody's got a better understanding of the whole process, the benefits. You guys have anything else to add before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I would say if you want to see more like video of this stuff, AFTCO.com, we've got all of this stuff broken down into little segments, and so you can see video, of the actual neural canal, of what the fish is going to do, step by step. So it's just another good resource.
And there's a bunch of stuff on YouTube too. When I started kind of geeking out on it, a lot of the stuff you can't understand what they're saying, but the process is the same, right?
Yeah.
So you can tell these hardcore Japanese guys, they're very much about it. The sushi chefs are very much about it. It's like we were talking about before the thing. I really believe these fish from a commercial aspect, I mean, we got a ton of buddies out there who are catching these fish commercially on our coast, satisfy the sushi bar. You are going to get more money for that fish, no question, if you take just a few extra minutes to Ike Jime it, and I would sell it as such. Hey, I took prime care of this. The hook and line thing is a great story. Whether you're doing it at home or you're doing it, commercial fishing or whatever, it just makes sense. You're getting the most out of the product, and especially on those days where, you only got one fish, you want to make that guy count.
Yeah. It's like beef, right? There's different grades of beef.
Yep.
It's the same thing with fish, right?
So you're going to take a choice steak and make it prime.
Absolutely.
Same exact thing. So I hope you guys have learned a lot from this. I really appreciate you coming out here, Chef Jeff, Robby.
Thank you.
Hopefully it was very educational, and you guys are going to kind of see fish in a different light. It's not as fragile as you think it is. You can get the fishiness out of it. You can make a better product overall. AFTCO's here to help you do that. Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate you guys watching.